likes confrontation? Yeah, right. Sign me up. Yeah, Joe. Okay. I should have known. I should have known. Usually not anybody, all right? Most of us do not like confrontation. In fact, many of us will avoid it at all costs, won't we? And sometimes that cost can be at the expense of giving away our power. Giving away our power. Our series this month is called The Gift of Choice, and it's supported by our book of the month, which is Debbie Ford's The Right Questions. And our question this week is, am I standing in my power or trying to please another? Am I standing in my power or am I trying to please another? You may have heard of this as people who are people pleasers. You may have heard that phraseology. Debbie suggests that running from confrontation may be a sign for us that we're trying to please another and not rock the boat. Not rock the boat. Today we're going to discover that it's okay to rock the boat. Okay? You up for that? It's okay to rock the boat. While I was reviewing the material, I really began to think about this idea of confrontation. And it may be too strong of a word for most of us. I mean, when you think of confrontation, you probably think of the head-to-head kind of confrontation thing that everybody does really, really avoid. But Holmes tells us in Science of Mind that we create mainly from the tendency of our thinking, from the autopilot stuff that we think about. So this idea of confrontation, as I thought about it, is a lot like the little things that we do all day long where we're just saying, okay, I won't deal with I won't address that. I won't make a comment about that. I won't disagree with that. I won't stand up for myself and say, no, I really don't want lima beans. I'll put them on my plate anyway, and I'll just push them around for a while. So it's those little things that have a tendency to build up to be us giving away our power. Giving away our power. What is power? What is power? Is it control? Ego-driven? We're talking spiritual power. And Ernest Holmes, the founder of CSL and the author of The Science of Mind, he says power is the energy by which everything lives. Power is the energy by which everything lives. He goes on to say that we may transmute or change as much of this infinite energy or God energy through us into whatever degree of power we choose. So I think of that as like physical power, electrical power, 880, 440, 220, 110, low voltage. We transform it, right? We transform it from the big power lines that come out of the power generating stations, and we transform it down, down, down to where it can be usable in our homes, right? And the same is true of spirit. Spirit is infinite energy coming to and through us. It's the spark of life itself in us. And we can transform or transmute, which is changing, as Holmes says, that into whatever form we choose. Debbie tells us in the book, she's got a big long definition of what it means to be in our power. And she says it means that each of us was put on this earth with everything we need to live a life full of purpose and meaning. It means claiming the credibility and uniqueness of our own humanity, trusting in our own brilliance to guide us. It calls on us to discover and then declare what's right and what's not right for us. Easy, huh? Let's look deeply. What would it take for us to really, really believe that we have, as she suggests, everything we need to live a life full of purpose and meaning? A life full of purpose and meaning. What would it take? I don't know about you, but some days I look around my life and I go, yeah, right, I don't see it. I don't see it. And yet, in reality, like Holmes says, that power is energy by which we all live. We're alive, we have life, so we have that power as long as we're still here living this thing called life. God is always pressing against us in that 440 energy, so to speak. And then it's up to us on how we're going to take it and what we're going to do with it. Many grow up being told that we are not smart enough, that we aren't good enough, that we're not intelligent enough, until we get to a point where we believe it. Because really big people in our lives have told us that, and we believe it must be true. And so we believe that all we can produce is the low voltage power, right? But that's not true. That's not true. We can all produce at the high voltage. Ernest tells us, you live because life lives in you. You move because there's a universal energy flowing through you. You think because there's an infinite intelligence thinking through you. You exist because the divine spirit has sought to individualize itself as you. This is why you are called the temple of the living God. There is a divine spark at the center of your being, but you need to recognize it, believe it, and act upon that belief. Imagine if you walked around every day and every moment, every breath, knowing that. Really, really knowing that. I'm God stuff. Not from an ego place, from the place of power. From the place of power. How would you interact with others? How would you approach your day? Many of us, of course, have embodied that belief. I know you've done your work. I know you believe this. I know that you do this on a regular basis. And that we've healed and transformed much of our old mindset that maybe had us trapped in some of those other experiences. And I also know that when we're challenged, we can go right back into autopilot and into those same behaviors, can't we? Yeah, we can go right back into those same behaviors. And this is where the right questions can come in handy for us. This is where the right questions can come in handy, because when we find ourselves falling into autopilot or a default mode of operating, and most of us recognize it, right? We know when we're like, oh no, not that again. But we can pause and ask ourselves one of those questions to come up with a better story, to come up with a better answer, to come up with a better choice for ourselves in that moment to get us out of that autopilot sort of reaction. Debbie says power also means claiming the credibility and uniqueness of our own humanity. Claiming the credibility and uniqueness of our humanity. Holmes tells us we are this universal presence as person. We are the universal presence as person. We are a point where it recognizes itself as person. We are its personality in individualization. He goes on to say, life has set the stamp of individuality on you. You are different from any other person who ever lived. You are an individualized center in the consciousness of God. You are an individualized activity in the action of God. That's a big idea. That's a lot to swallow, isn't it? That's a really, really big idea. When I first started in Science of Mind, it was one of the things I struggled with, because I had come out of the Methodist Church tradition. God was a guy in the sky on a throne who judged me with a little black notebook that I had to answer to at some point. That was what God was to me. And when I came into this teaching and I hear stuff like this, like, what? It can't be. But the more I've studied and embodied this teaching, the more it resonates that that is true. That to have a human figure be God is a small God. To have this essence and presence of spirit that Holmes describes, this universal intelligence, this energy, this power that he describes, that makes so much more sense, because that's a much larger, infinite God. And that it creates from itself into form, to live through that form and to experience itself as form, begins to make sense. It begins to make sense. I may get it spiritually, but how do I claim that uniqueness in this world of physicality? How do I claim that? Because the world tells me I'm not special. I'm not unique, doesn't it? And it also tells me what I need to do or buy to be unique, doesn't it? Yeah, to conform to the world's idea of how I should show up. So Debbie's definition of power tells us to claim the credibility and uniqueness of our own humanity. And Holmes tells us that this is true, that we are individual, unique expressions of God. Debbie says claim it. But we deny it, don't we? More often than not, we deny it. Maybe not verbally, but in our actions. Sometimes in our actions. So how can we shift this? How can we shift this? I think it has to do with diving into the idea of infinity. And every time I say that word, I think about Buzz Lightyear. Infinity and beyond. But I remember during grade school, when they were teaching negative numbers. Remember that? They put the line on the board and the zero in the middle, and let's see, your perspective would be what? Negative and positive numbers going that way, right? And the teacher was trying to explain how these numbers are negative and positive on both sides of the zero, and they go on forever. They're infinite. They never stop. And I got hung up on infinite. I mean, she's trying to teach about negative numbers, right? And I'm like, well, wait a minute. There's got to be an ending. It's like, no, there's no ending. They just keep on going. Just keep adding zeros. It keeps on going. And when we can begin to wrap our mind around there's no ending to God, there's no limit to God, it's infinite. It's infinite, as are the possibilities for us in our life. Infinite when we open to that. Unending and forever. And when we can begin to grasp this idea, even as a glimmer, because it can be hard as a finite thinker to grasp infinity, but when you can get that little glimmer of it, the immensity of the idea of God as us, in us, expressing itself as us, we begin to understand Marianne Williamson's quote. It's a classic quote we've all heard. Your playing small does not serve the world. There's nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. And that's the whole point of this. Am I in my power, or am I trying to please someone else? Am I giving it away? Am I playing small so that someone else does not feel insecure? Understanding and accepting our individuality is really our highest form of faith, isn't it? It's our highest form of faith that Spirit lives, moves, and has its being within us. It's that saying, let God be God through you. Another piece of this understanding our power from Debbie is trusting in our own brilliance to guide us. Well, we can see brilliance in everybody else, but seeing brilliance in ourselves sometimes is hard to do, right? We know ourselves so well. I couldn't possibly be brilliant, but I can see your brilliance. But that's what she's talking about, seeing our brilliance guide us. Ernest Holmes says, the one the power of spiritual realization in everyday affairs should believe in divine guidance. He should affirm that his mind is continually impressed with the images of right action, and that everything in his life is controlled by love, harmony, and peace, that everything he does is prosperous. Accepting divine guidance. So our own brilliance that Debbie's talking about is our intuition, our instinct, the still small voice. The place that we go when we're confused, uncertain, need clarity, don't know what to do. Many times I hear people start telling a story about something happening in their life, and I ask, did you go to prayer? What's your prayer? How can I support you in prayer? Oh, darn, I forgot to do that part. I can do this, and it's my 2-year-old. I'll do it myself. stomping my foot, right? But we don't have to. We make it more difficult than it needs to be. We have the guidance system. Our feelings, our emotions, our intuition. We're still enough to listen. We're still enough to listen. To learn to trust our own brilliance does require some surrender, doesn't it? It requires some surrender to not polling. Remember, our Brene Brown was talking how she likes to poll people and survey them about if her letter that she wrote, is this, what do you think? Isn't this brilliant? Didn't I do a great job of this? Should I send it? How was this? Rather than trusting her own inner wisdom, which the therapist pointed out to her quite clearly, I believe, if we recall the book and the story. But trusting that our own brilliance, it takes practice, patience, and surrender. So the final piece of understanding our power is to discover and then declare what's right and what's not right for us. Discover and declare what's right and what's not right for us. Now, most of us in this room, by the time we reach the age that we reached, know what's right and what's not right for us, don't we? The challenge can be standing in that truth, though, can't it? That can be the challenge. And this is where this comes in. Because how do I do that? We ask the question, am I standing in my power or trying to please another? I think our work is to develop the vocabulary. We talked a little bit at the end of July in our Miracle Club work about how we need conversation and dialogue to begin working from solution rather than effect. We get into the effect arena and we want to argue about the effects that are already there. The things that we don't like are the effects that are around us. We argue about those effects rather than what would I prefer, and having the dialogue and the conversation in the arena of solution, in the arena of new cause. We are creative, right? We have that power available to us, but we want to play in the world of effects. We want to play in this world of effects. So when we're going to get into trouble is with the argument. It is with the argument. And discovering what's right and not right for us is step one. And that comes back to our values. That comes back to what we believe. And knowing those things. Knowing those things. And being able to articulate what our values are. And maybe why it's valuable to us. Why it's important to us. In whatever arena that might be. So that's step one, is discovering what's right and what's not right for us, what I stand for, what I won't stand for. Step two is the learning to articulate and practice. Learning to articulate and practice. And that's our lifelong work, isn't it? Because the same articulation may not work with every person. So we learn and we expand and we grow with that. And you know, what works and what doesn't work may change over time. As we grow and expand, those things may change as well. So our vocabulary needs to change, our language, our understanding of ourselves as we expand. So we're going to turn to our practicing the principles today and look at ways that we can claim our power versus giving it away. And the first one is to accept ourselves as we are. Strengths, weaknesses, brilliance, flaws, no matter what anybody else thinks. All of this is not about resistance. I don't care what anybody thinks, and I'm going to be the squeaky wheel in everything in my life, right? It's not about that. It's about this idea of giving away our power. Are we becoming the, what do they say, the doormat, and giving away our power? Or are we recognizing our own divinity and standing in our truth in a powerful, compassionate, kind, loving way? Just owning who we are. What this question is about. It's not about getting into confrontation and challenging people about I stand for this and you stand for that and I'm right and you're wrong. We can't solve anything at that level. It's about us simply knowing who we are and teaching the world how to treat us. Teaching the world how to treat us. So accepting ourselves as we are, getting in touch with that. Do you know who you are? Do you know who you are? Some time in the silence helps us to discover that. Knowing who we are and how we show up in life. Are you somebody you'd like to hang out with? Always a good question. Would I hang out with me? If not, there's specific areas that we would like to improve. I'd like to hang out with me except for X, Y, whatever it might be. Change it, right? Change it. You want to be kinder? Be kinder. You want to be more compassionate? Be compassionate. Whatever it is, we have the ability to do that. Number 2, stand in our own integrity and live from that place. When we are, number 1, when we accept who we are, we accept ourselves as we are, then we can be number 2. We can be number 2, stand in and live from our own integrity. We're in alignment. We're in alignment. Ernest, every man is in the integrity of his own soul. No one can give to him but himself. No one can take from him but himself. Under the great law of God, there is no law to him but his own soul shall set it. Do not 2 people view the same scene and one find it beauty and the other ugliness? Anybody seen Once Upon a Time in Hollywood? Nobody? Okay, a couple people. Well, it's been fascinating because we went to it. First half, loved it. Great people. In part, went Tarantino. And I didn't like it, right? And it was really long. And it's been very interesting to watch the reviews and hear friends review it. Some love the movie, thought it was just fabulous. And me, not so much. So that's what, we all have our different law of our own lives and what we like, what we don't like, standing in that integrity of what we do and don't like. It wins an Academy Award. Oh, I love that movie. That's giving away my power, isn't it? Yeah, that's giving away my power. I didn't love it. Brad Pitt was pretty good, but that's a different story. Okay, so it is said that integrity is the quality and practice of being honest, showing a consistent and uncompromising adherence to strong moral and ethical principles and values, the state of being whole and undivided. Integrity is regarded as the honesty and truthfulness of one's actions with ourselves and the entire world. So being in our integrity is really in that alignment. And that, again, comes back to this question, am I in my power? Am I trying to please someone else? Am I out of my own personal integrity in that moment by giving myself away trying to please someone else? Asking ourselves the question, am I standing in my power or trying to please another, is a great start to begin to tear down any walls of thought that we may have built that block us from our God-centered power. Thoughts like, if I speak my truth, they won't love me. Because sometimes growing up, we may have spoken our truth and our parents didn't like what we did, right? Or maybe we didn't get good grades and we felt like they suddenly didn't love us anymore. Ooh, can't do that. Or maybe they won't like me. Maybe they'll leave me. Maybe they'll abandon me if I speak my truth. Or if I speak what I really believe, it'll end up in a fight or an argument or a disagreement. I won't rock the boat. Anybody hear that one? Don't rock the boat. Just go along to get along, right? And sometimes that's the bravest thing to do, the most courageous thing to do, but frequently not. It's time to be strong and true to our own desires. And Nelson Mandela sums it up when he says, there is no passion to be found playing small and settling for a life that is less than the one that you're capable of living. And you're capable of greatness, aren't you? Say yes. Yes, we're capable of greatness. We're here to express the magnificence of God, to allow that master power to come through us and to transform it into our individualized lives. We have everything we need to live a life full of purpose and meaning. Are you standing in your power? Or are you trying to please another? I'll close today with a quote from one of my favorite authors, unknown. It's okay to rock the boat sometimes. If someone falls out, then they were never meant to be in your boat in the first place. So in an affirmative prayer. How good it is that we can enjoy and laughter on this beautiful Sunday morning as we recognize the divinity of the one we call God, the wholeness of life, the energy, the power of the universe. It is this divine presence. It is love and harmony and balance and intelligence and wisdom. It is that which has created the smallest and that which has created the largest and everything in between, including me, for I am an individualized and unique manifestation of this presence, a divine idea in the mind of God made form. And as I know this for myself, I know it for each one in this room today, that we are each individualized expressions of God, here to reveal the magnificence of this one power, this one presence, through us, as it experiences itself through us in this dance we call life, joyfully expressing. And so I speak my word for and about each one of us today, claiming this brilliance, claiming this magnificence that we are, as we allow this power, this tiny spark of the divine within us, that we flame into that inferno of power in our lives, as we allow God to be God through us. And I know for anyone that has anything on their heart today that they're seeking prayer around, that whatever needs to be revealed, healed, clarified, circulated, is done this day. For we know that all solution is in the one, is already in existence, and we just await its manifestation in form through us in our lives now. And how grateful I am for this knowing. How grateful I am to know that the power and the presence of God is in, through, and as each of us, and that we have the ability to transform and transmute that into the form of our desires. So from this state of gratitude, I release this into the activity of mind, into the action of law, knowing that it is already done and manifested in each of our lives here today. I let it be, I let it go, and so it is.